Hey guys, Colby here. Welcome back to another video. We got some news today that I want to go through. Lots of things to think about considering your moves for the weekend and everything. So I would say save up everything that you have to start tomorrow for farming for the speed 3x on the Dragon's Lair. Do not go out and farm today because the Path of Spring, which starts tomorrow, April 28th at 8 a.m. UTC, and goes all the way to Tuesday, May 2nd, will have the opportunity for you to get the Razelvarg 5-star Perfect Soul. So if you're thinking of trying to get that, then you'll need to be able to summon champions and get artifacts and accessories through just basically farming a lot. So if you want to do that, I would suggest farming for Dragon and get that 3x chance for some speed items. Have that in mind, and also summoning champions. During the weekend, you'll be able to get some points. So summoning champions will also have a 10x during the weekend. So once the 10x starts, then you'll have the opportunity to pick on some good champions. I'll go over those right now. We'll think about whether it's good or not to go for these 10x's. Most of the time it's not, honestly. The chances are too low, and unless it's a void champion, void legendary, it's just too low to get them. It's all up to luck if you're gonna get the champion offered, rather than, you know, the increased amount that you have because of a 10x. They need to be 20x or 30x even to consider them, honestly, and unless you are such a big whale, which again doesn't guarantee anything. So going over the 10x champions, we're gonna have a void champion and non-void champions. The legendaries offered through this one are the ones everybody's interested about, and this one, in terms of the voids, is one of the champions I don't have. I don't have Gyorgit, the breaker. Honestly, this is one of the highest damage dealers currently in the game, considered S tier or top tier by many because of the way that he works by ignoring strengthen, stone skin, and killable, block damage, increased defense, ally protection, and shield buffs. This is huge for just dealing insane amounts of damage to enemies, and when his passive procs, he can actually ignore 50% more of the target's defense. Of course, this is mitigated if the enemy has a Harima in the squad, but you know, not everybody has her, and this guy is one tough nuker, especially when he gets the kill. He gains an unkillable with his A2 if he gets a kill for that. So you kill somebody with this, you then use your big burst, which also does insane amount of damage in terms of an AoE, and you get an unkillable. He becomes a huge threat for the opponents. Of course, if you're missing stuff like a Necrot, it's hard to protect him. Being a attack-based nuker, he has a very low base HP, which is okay if you have something to protect him. But if you don't, then he's there basically for whoever to just take him down. So if you're gonna get this champion, make sure that you also have something to protect him, and don't expect that you'll be able to just survive enemies. Just having an attack-based nuker is not the ideal way right now, especially for live arena. So that's it in terms of the void legendary offered for this 10x, guys. We've got some news for balance changes as well. I'll go over that in the end. So next one is Cadraphon. We're getting some demon spawns offered through this one. So Hefrag, Cadraphon is going to be offered. So let's go over Cadraphon, which I do have right now. Great single target hitter, which this can actually hit twice. If the target is under any buff, hits very hard. A2 hits also very hard, and also gains an extra turn and resets the cooldown if the attack kills an enemy. Resets the cooldown of this, but this is not really used in auto situations. It's mostly used in situations when you're playing on live arena, where it's mostly non-auto battles, where you can actually use this to your benefit with Perfect Veil boosting his passive, which not only boosts his damage by 40%, but also he receives 40% less damage because of all of this. So have that in mind. Very, very strong non-void champion. I mean, if I had a choice out of the many non-voids, I would definitely, want to have Cadraphon in my team. He's not used so much in PvE content, more so for PvP rather than anything, because of his long cooldown here. And the fact that he doesn't have multiple AoEs. It's just this AoE, and you have to wait 3 turns for this one, 4 turns if you don't have it booked. So have that in mind. Hefrag is a little bit different in that sense. He does have a big burst, all right, which can actually trigger twice if you consider his passive. When one of your allies dies, Hefrag procs his A2 skill again and does a big burst, which can potentially be a double hitting burst if you can actually drop them to below 50% health. But depending on what kind of enemies you're fighting, this will not always happen. It depends if you got debuffs on. It makes it easier for you to go through that 50% threshold and then you know, do that extra hit. So it all depends on that. Some people actually build Hefrag with less crit rate, but me personally, I wouldn't do that because of the fact that sometimes he'll attack out of turn and won't have this buff of 30% extra crit rate. So although this sounds good, this is more for the younger accounts who don't have that much good gear. They can build him with 70% crit rate and depend on this buff to get that 100% crit rate and really do the burst. Also has a double hitting attack if the condition of the critical hit is met. So have that in mind. Pretty strong. If it's a weak hit, it won't do the crit, so it's only going to be a one hit kind of skill. Very, very strong damage dealer again. So two very strong demon spawn legendaries, and then we go, of course, for the one and only Trunda. I do have a Trunda that is very strong right now with 5-star awakening and a +1 empowerment. Overall, Trunda is amazing. Overall, you can use her in so many different places, even use her as a stun champion because her A3 does a stun if you give her some accuracy. If not, then you're looking for an arena Trunda, which does the double hit because you don't land the stuns on purpose. You don't give her any accuracy. And this is just insane amount of damage. Can be a huge threat for enemies. She's got a passive there, which people forget. Like, she gains extra speed. And she also has this A2 skill, which is amazing for the Hydra, especially normal and hard Hydra, which is where she's mostly used. This will be huge for killing down the heads. And if you got reset champions to go along with Trunda, then you gonna have a much easier time in taking down those Hydra bosses. And her A1 can also stun, but again, that's dependent on her accuracy. So that's it for the legendaries. For the epics, I mean, we do have Skull Crown offered through this 10x, very strong Void, but I mean, you're gonna get her if you're trying to get Yorgit. I would say, yeah, she is good, but the epic nukers has really fallen off in terms of end game stuff. But if you're an account that's growing slowly, getting Skull Crown is amazing. Has a double hit here, which can be very solid for taking down enemies if she's the one firstly attacking, so the enemies have more than 50% health. Very strong A2 and a passive that gives her an unkillable, so she does really survive, which is pretty cool. And then we've got some enemy max HP nukers. We've got Royal Guard and Husk offered. There's not really much to say other than you need these champions. Overall, Royal Guard, amazing. I've done a showcase for the Spider with Royal Guard in the past. I've done a showcase with Husk. In Hydras, that's where he's mostly used. Amazing damage dealer for Hydras. I've got 2 of them built out with Awakenings. I've bought the Awakenings for Husk because they're so good. And the Royal Guards, I've got 3 of them maxed out. They do enemy max HP damage, and they can be key for beating Spider, the hard mode of Spider, because of this big A2. Enemy max HP damage as well. If you are summoning and you get a Royal Guard in the end and you didn't have one, consider this a win because he's that good. And then finally, we've got Magnar, who is not that great, I will say, anymore. He still does a lot of work. His A2 can still do a double hitting attack and do very solid amount of damage, but he's not that much used anymore, especially in arenas, because of the fact that so many empowerments exist right now, and awakenings are stronger on legendaries. Legendaries have pretty much overtaken all the epics in arenas. You don't see epics anymore as much as you did in the past before we had all of these, you know, power creep systems that Plarium has added. But he's still very strong, and I would highly recommend any newer accounts that get a Magnar to try him out with some damage gear. But keep in mind that you need good gear for him to shine. So HP based nuking gear for his nuking abilities to shine, and you won't be able to depend on stuff like an increased attack that attack based nukers have to do more damage, or an increased defense where defense nukers can depend on that to do even more damage. So you won't have that. It's all gonna be through your gear, and if you don't have good gear, you'll see a lower amount of damage compared to, let's say, an attack-based nuker that you had with Arbiter. They're boosting the increased attack. You would see much bigger numbers. All right, going to the next part of the video, it's the balancing patch. Okay, lots of things to consider. So a balancing patch for orcs this time around. It's 2 champions, 2 legendaries. If you have them, they're going to be reworked a little bit. One of them is a solid rework. The other one, I don't get it. The gun block is the one I don't get. Let's go over that quickly. So his Fateful Trickster skill now changes, where he can steal all the buffs from the target instead of 2 random buffs. And then he also has a chance to steal Termiter from the enemy. So the problem with this is that he's a nuker, okay? So you won't build him with accuracy. So you won't be able to do any of these without any accuracy. Of course, you can do this with an enemy that has minimal resistance. But for the majority of the fights, you'll be facing issues with resistance, okay? So stealing buffs, you might face an issue with that. And you can't steal stuff like a bolster shield buff, okay? Because that is protected and cannot be removed or stolen. So have that in mind. Then his A3, his passive is what also changes, where he gains a shield instead of 15%, he gains a 30% shield when 4 or more buffs are placed on the enemy team in a single turn. So it's weird. I mean, even the 30% doesn't change much. He does have a good amount of health for an attack-based nuker, so 20,000 health and a low base attack, which doesn't make so much sense based on his multipliers. This is okay in PvE situations, but PvP, 20,000 health plus another 20 maybe from gear, you're at 40,000 health. You gain a 30% shield, that's another 10,000 health shield. You're at about 50,000 health. Will that affect the fight? Not so much. The nuker will still break you down. So this doesn't give him much. Gomlock, I believe, is a Doom Tower champion. I might be wrong in that. I can't remember if he's a Doom Tower champion or not. Even so, even with these changes, he doesn't become something amazing that I would recommend, building out. Then we have Noctar, right? The final thing for today's video. Noctar is getting a big change to almost all of his skills. So let me explain how he's gonna work. You're gonna have his A3, which will add an additional thing to its kit, where he'll get an extra turn when this happens. So he'll sacrifice 50% of his health, then equalize the HP levels with the target enemy. So let's say your enemy is a Duchess. You'll sacrifice 50% of your health, equalize it, the Duchess goes to 50% health. Then what happens is that he'll get that extra turn because of the change now that's happening. The extra turn, you either go with the A1 or the A2. If you go with the A2, look at what happens to this. Attacks all enemies. After attacking, this champion sacrifices HP equal to 50% of his max HP, then places 2 continuous heal buffs on the champion for 2 turns. This HP sacrifice will happen even if it kills this champion. So you can go that way and do this big AoE and then sacrifice 50% of your health. You remember you're at 50% here, and then another 50% sacrifice through here. So you will die. Even with the continuous heal buff, you will die. And now, by the way, the continuous heal buff will be given to all the champions in your team, and it's going to be 1 buff instead of 2 on this champion. So it's a little bit of a change as a support kind of style, but also, he'll be giving the buff to everybody, and then he'll die. Okay, when he dies, this passive procs. Very interesting. So when that passive procs, it says revives the champion with 50% health and 50% termeter when killed if all other allies are alive. So when this happens, what Noctar is going to do is that he'll, instead of 50%, he'll revive with 100% termeter, which is very cool. So he'll actually get a turn there and basically reset this, and he'll be able to do one of his other skills. So if you did this, A3, then A2, and then the passive revived him, you'll be able to do your A1 and heal a little bit and grant an extra turn if the attack kills an enemy. If that happens, then it's cool, okay? You get an extra turn. You might be able to slowly get your cooldowns down if you get multiple turns in PvE situations. In PvP, it's unlikely that you'll be able to get multiple turns, and it's not so many targets that you can kill. Eventually, the run will be over. So I see this as a solid change in terms of making everything work together. You maybe want to try out starting with the A2. You drop to 50% health, you heal a little bit, and then if he's protected by something, he'll survive, and then do his A3. So his A3 will sacrifice another 50% of his health and drop basically the enemy to 1% health, okay? But he won't be able to die because of this skill. So he'll be at 1% health, the enemy will be at 1% health, and that will be a good way for you to kill off the enemy with another damage dealer. So have that in mind. So overall, I like this change. Noctar makes more sense for his kit. This passive also becomes much better with 100% terminator instead of the 50% terminator. And I'm curious if this works. It says if all other allies are alive. I doubt that this works if he's solo. So I don't think he can be like a solo reviver, because it's going to be considering that he has no other allies alive if he's a solo champion. But it does not work with multiple Noctar. So can't think of a situation where we use this guy to cheese something. But I would love to have him just to test things out. I don't have him, unfortunately. So it's the balancing that I'm telling you guys right now. It's all basically words, right, to a screen. So these are the news for today, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Check out my other video that I posted earlier today about the free-to-play account that has basically won Raid Shadow Legends. He got Lydia without summoning a single Ancient Void or Sacred Shard. Check that one out. It's a pretty cool one. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in the next one. See ya.